Harpocrates is the Hellenistic or Greek adaptation of the Egyptian child god Horus the Younger, especially Horus as the child. Harpocrates being the Latinized version of the Greek Harpocrates, which derives from the Egyptian Heru Pa Kurd, meaning Horus the Child. In Egyptian mythology, Horus the Child is often depicted seated on a lotus flower, with his finger held to his lips, a gesture that originally symbolized childhood or silence in Egyptian iconography. However, when the Greeks encountered this image, they misunderstood the gesture as one of secrecy or silence. Thus, Hippocrates became associated in Greco Roman traditions with silence, secrecy, and mystery. So, who is the silent child seated on the lotus flower, holding his finger to his lips? To the ancient Egyptians, he was Horus the Child, symbol of rebirth, light, and divine protection. But to the Greeks and Romans, he became Harpocrates, the god of silence and mystery. Let us explore the deeper meanings hidden within this ancient image, from his roots in Egyptian myth to his transformation into the symbol of esoteric wisdom. Join us as we uncover the mysteries of Harpocrates. And without further ado, the lesson titled, The Finger. Let's begin. Harpocrates first appears in the religious landscape of ancient Egypt as Heru Pa Kurd, meaning Horus the Child. He is the youthful form of Horus, born of the divine union between Isis and the resurrected Osiris. In temple reliefs and statuaries, he is depicted as a small boy with a side lock of hair, often seated on a lotus flower or cradled in the arms of his mother. This image was never meant to imply secrecy, but it signified youth, innocence, and the protective role of the divine forces in the lives of mortals. Hippocrates was associated with the rising sun, the daily renewal of life, and the soul's potential for rebirth. When Egypt came under Hellenistic, meaning Greek rule, the Greco Roman culture sought to understand and integrate the local deities into their own cosmology. In this process of religious synchronism, Horus the Child was adopted into the Greek pantheon as Harpocrates. But in a pivotal misinterpretation, the gesture of the finger to the lips, originally denoting youth, was read as a sign of silence. This shift in meaning laid the foundation for Harpocrates' transformation from a symbol of solar rebirth into a deity of secrecy and inner wisdom. He became a favorite figure in the Greco-Roman mystery cults, where silence was essential to preserving the sanctity of initiatory knowledge. So we see in this transition from the Egyptian to the Greco-Roman or the Hellenistic period, how Hippocrates evolved, or to be quite honest, how he was misinterpreted from a divine child in myth to a metaphysical archetype, from being a figure or a symbol within the solar cults to a guardian of hidden truths bridging the mythological and the mystical within the Greco-Roman schools of theology. And quite honest, it's just like human worship or the lower beast, lower nature of man, dealing much in the ego. With the reinterpretation or the misinterpretation of his gesture, Hippocrates came to embody a deeper, more mystical symbolism, that of silence as a sacred principle. In the Greco-Roman and later in the Hermetic traditions, silence was not merely the absence of speech, it was the medium of transcendence, the space in which divine truth could be encountered beyond the limits of language. Hippocrates' finger to the lip became a powerful emblem of this idea. He stood as the guardian of the ineffable, a reminder that the highest knowledge, what the Greeks called gnosis, could not be spoken, only experienced. This interpretation aligns with ancient mystery traditions, which held that true wisdom must be protected from profanation. Initiates into the Eleusinian mysteries, the Orphic rites, and the Hermetic order took vows of silence, not to obscure truth, but to preserve its sanctity. So Hippocrates, in this context, became the symbol of the inner sanctum of the soul, a place where the divine speaks in silence. This idea resonates strongly with apathetic or negative theology. Apathetic theology is also known as negative theology, which is just a form of theology or theological thinking demonstrated in a religious practice which attempts to approach God or the Most High or the divine by negation, to speak only in terms of what may not be said about the perfect goodness of that God or what God is. The Most High power or the ultimate reality is beyond all names, forms, and descriptions, and such silence becomes a form of reverence, a sacred mode of knowing what words cannot contain. In Hermetic philosophy, Hippocrates is not only a keeper of secrets, but a reflection of the soul itself, that of silence, waiting and wanting for the inner revelation that dawns not in speech, but in stillness. His gesture becomes a map for the inward path, leading the seeker not outward toward doctrine or religion, but inward towards transformation. As the miraculous son of Isis and Osiris, Hippocrates is not merely a child of myth, he is an enduring symbol of spiritual regeneration. His birth follows the violent fragmentation of Osiris and the grieving search of Isis, culminating in a divine conception that transcends death. This mystic cycle speaks of an inner reality, that the soul must pass through de-embarkment, suffering, and loss before it can be reborn into a new purified form. Hippocrates then represents the sacred child within, the silent self that emerges when the fragmented psyche begins to heal. From the alchemical perspective, the inner child corresponds to the philosopher's stone in its earliest stages, the seed of transmutation, innocent yet powerful, born from the union of opposites. The child is the product of spiritual integration, of both masculine and feminine forces reconciled within. Hippocrates, in this light, is the soul in its embryonic divinity, vulnerable, silent, and radiant with untapped potential. His silence now takes on a new meaning. It is not secrecy alone, but the stillness required for rebirth. He does not speak because the mystery of becoming must be lived, not explained. Hippocrates is more than a deity preserved in ancient myth. He is a living allegory of inner stillness, sacred rebirth, and the power of unspoken word. His silence is not emptiness, but fullness beyond articulation. He teaches us that true wisdom often arrives not in declaration, but in quiet recognition, not in outward display, but in inward awakening. To understand Hippocrates is to approach the mystery of the self, the divine child within who remembers what the world forgot, that the deepest truths never shouted, they are whispered in silence. Thank you for joining me on this journey into the mysteries of Hippocrates. His image, not a relic of forgotten mythology, but a profound symbol that continues to speak through silence to those seeking inner truth. If you found value in this video, we invite you to subscribe, share, and continue the dialogue in the comments below. And until next time, may your silence be filled with light.